TSA is stepping up security this weekend after a new terror warning. The Department of Homeland Security issued a bulletin this week about the threat from so-called body bombs, explosives surgically implanted inside the bodies of would-be terrorists. I'm joined now live by Cindy Farkus, Managing Director at the Chertoff Group and former Undersecretary of Intelligence and Analysis at the Department of Homeland Security. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, Alex. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Well, I got to ask you, is this a new tactic on the part of would-be terrorists? I mean, and if so, is there any reason for the stepped-up security now?
This really isn't a new tactic. We have seen this threat evolve over the years, and if you look back at how the bombs have been in place throughout the threats to aviation, they start out in luggage. They move to liquid ideas with the liquid plots. They move on to other things. As soon as we put in methods and ways to approach the threat, they're going to adapt and evolve. We face a very adaptive enemy, and that's why we must maintain the layered security approach that we have in place today to address these threats in the most effective way possible, because there is no one technology, there's no one way that will get all of the threats that face us.
So, Cindy, how exactly would this body bomb work?
Well, from what we've seen, they would have to actually surgically implant the explosive within the body. And then, of course, you have to have something that detonates that. So this is not a very easy approach, and this is not something that can easily be done. We have seen, of course, in the past, if you remember a few years ago, the dogs that were surgically implanted and tried to get them on a plane in Iraq to come to the United States. So there have been efforts to at least experiment with this. One aspect you also have to consider is this way to get us nervous and scared, and then to overreact in a way that the terrorists win by the way we react.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. If anybody saw the film The Dark Knight, there is a depiction in that film of a bomb surgically implanted, and then it's done by remote, a cell phone calls, it rings and it goes off. I mean, that's what just immediately sprung to mind. Is it conceivable that this could really work?
I really don't know technically if that could work the way, because there's so much involved with whether something is inside. So there, again, the idea is to focus on the multiple layers that we have and focus on the person. It isn't about an object. It isn't about a particular way to attack, to look at either using a single technology or a single thing that someone might do. Mm-hmm. We have to look for those kind of things that are out of place, to look what people are, the kinds of travel patterns that they have, to look at how they're acting in an airport, and to test for explosive trace detections, and to really focus on the looking at the person rather than looking at that may pose the most risk, rather than looking at everyone in the same way.
Yeah, you know, the TSA says that it's increasing security, Cindy. I'm assuming it's doing everything it can already, one would hope.
Well, what you want in place with the layered security approach is something that's sustainable, but different in different places, because you don't want something that is so predictable that anybody who's watching and monitoring will understand and know where to exploit a vulnerability, because something is always the same. So they will take different measures in different places. There may be increased pat-downs, there may be increased discussions with passengers, there may be an increased presence of canine detection, explosive detection teams, and there may be an increased law enforcement presence. It will vary by location. And we're not doing this alone. This is done in an international global aviation security approach, which is imperative because the threat isn't just here.
Yeah.
Big concern.
Absolutely. Cindy Farkus, thanks for joining us. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
The royal visit to Los Angeles.